It was a quiet evening at the local grocery store. Lisa Taylor, a hard-working single mother, had just finished a long shift and stopped by to pick up essentials for her son. Her face showed signs of exhaustion, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. The store was busy with customers, and Lisa thought this would be just another ordinary day. Out of nowhere, the loud, sharp voice of a police officer cut through the air. "Hey, you! Stop right there!" Lisa froze, startled. The voice belonged to Officer Brad Stone, a tall man with a commanding presence and a reputation for being harsh and uncompromising. His cold eyes locked onto Lisa as if she were a criminal. "What's in your bag?" he demanded, stepping closer. "I saw you acting suspicious. Are you stealing?" The store went silent. All eyes turned to Lisa as she clutched her shopping bag tighter. She was confused and humiliated, but she stood her ground. "Sir, I'm not stealing," Lisa said calmly, trying to de-escalate the situation. "I paid for everything in this bag. You can check the receipt." But Stone wasn't interested in hearing her. He waved her words aside and began berating her loudly, questioning her honesty and even her ability to raise her child properly. People in the store began whispering, but no one stepped forward to help. A few pulled out their phones to record, but the tension was palpable. Lisa's heart raced. Her mind screamed, "Why me? Why now?" Then, from the crowd, a man stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "Officer, I think you owe this woman an apology." The officer turned sharply toward the man. The situation was about to escalate even further, and what happened next left everyone stunned. Why did this confident officer suddenly change his tune and beg for forgiveness? Stay tuned to uncover the shocking truth behind this unforgettable story. Rising tension, confrontation, and humiliation. Lisa could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her as Officer Stone's accusations grew louder and more demeaning. The humiliation was suffocating. She clutched her grocery bag as if it were a lifeline, her fingers trembling. The officer loomed over her, his authoritative voice cutting through the store like a blade. "You think you can just walk in here and take whatever you want? People like you have no respect for the law." Stone spat, his words dripping with prejudice. Lisa's mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Please, just check my receipt," she repeated, her voice shaking. She extended her hand, holding the crumpled piece of paper that proved her innocence. But Stone wasn't listening. He smirked, snatched the receipt from her hand, and made a show of examining it. "I don't believe this for a second," he muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. He crumpled the receipt in his fist and tossed it aside like garbage. Lisa's cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and anger. She felt trapped, powerless under the gaze of a man who clearly enjoyed exercising his authority. Around her, the crowd of shoppers watched silently. Some were recording the scene on their phones, but no one dared to intervene. The officer took a step closer, invading her personal space. "Do you even know how many people like you I deal with every day? You think you're special?" His tone was venomous, his words laced with assumptions that went beyond anything Lisa had said or done. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had faced challenges before, but this public degradation was something new, something unbearable. "Please, officer," Lisa said, her voice cracking. "I haven't done anything wrong. I just want to go home to my son." At the mention of her son, Stone's expression darkened further. "Oh, so now you're playing the sympathy card? What kind of example are you setting for him? Stealing from a grocery store?" The accusation was too much. Lisa's hands clenched into fists, not out of aggression, but as an attempt to steady herself. She opened her mouth to defend herself again when a deep voice interrupted. "That's enough." The voice cut through the tension like a knife, firm and commanding. Everyone turned toward the source. A tall man in his early 40s, dressed in a neat button-up shirt and jeans, stepped forward from the crowd. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet intensity. "Who are you?" Stone barked, his focus shifting from Lisa to the man. "My name is Marcus," the man said evenly, "and I think it's time you stopped harassing this woman." Stone's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. "Harassing? I'm doing my job. If you've got a problem with that, keep it to yourself." But Marcus wasn't intimidated. "Your job is to serve and protect, not humiliate innocent people," he said. "This woman hasn't done anything wrong. The receipt she showed you proves that. Yet you're treating her like a criminal. Why?" The officer's face reddened with anger. "Stay out of this, or you'll regret it," he snapped, taking a step toward Marcus. But Marcus didn't back down. He crossed his arms and held his ground, his voice unwavering. "No, officer, I won't stay out of this, because what you're doing is wrong, and everyone here knows it." The crowd murmured in agreement, emboldened by Marcus's courage. A few people nodded, and some even spoke up, echoing his sentiment. "He's right," a woman said from the back of the crowd. "She didn't do anything wrong." "Leave her alone," another voice called out. The officer's confidence began to falter as the tide of public opinion turned against him. His eyes darted around the room, taking in the growing support for Lisa and Marcus. But instead of admitting his mistake, he doubled down. "You people don't understand how hard my job is," he said defensively. "I see thieves every day. It's my duty to stop them." "And how many of those thieves look like her?" Marcus shot back, his voice rising. "How often do you let your bias decide who's guilty instead of the facts?" The crowd murmured again, louder this time. Stone's face twisted with frustration, but he said nothing. Lisa, still trembling, looked up at Marcus. For the first time since the confrontation began, she felt a flicker of hope. Someone was standing up for her. Someone was willing to challenge the injustice she was facing. The turning point came when a store employee stepped forward, holding a security tablet. "Excuse me, officer," the young man said nervously. "We reviewed the security footage. She didn't steal anything. She's telling the truth." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Stone, who stood frozen in place. His jaw tightened, and his face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. "Let me see that," he demanded, snatching the tablet from the employee. He watched the footage for a few seconds before throwing the tablet back into the employee's hands. Stone turned to Lisa, his expression unreadable. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "You're free to go." But Marcus wasn't done. "No, officer," he said firmly. "That's not enough." Stone's head snapped toward him. "What are you talking about?" "You owe her an apology," Marcus said. "A real apology. Right here, in front of everyone." The officer's face darkened. "I don't owe anyone anything." "Yes, you do," Marcus said, his voice like steel. "You humiliated her. You accused her of a crime she didn't commit. And you did it all because of your own prejudice. If you have any decency, you'll apologize." The crowd erupted in agreement, voices demanding accountability. Stone hesitated, his gaze flickering between Marcus, Lisa, and the crowd. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. Finally, with a visible effort, he turned to Lisa. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Louder!" someone called from the crowd. Stone clenched his fists and repeated, "I'm sorry." Lisa didn't say anything at first. She looked him in the eye, her own gaze steady. Then she turned to Marcus and said softly, "Thank you." The officer stormed out of the store, his authority shattered. As he left, the crowd erupted into applause, not just for Lisa, but for Marcus, who had stood up against injustice and refused to back down. Lisa walked out of the store with Marcus by her side. Though her heart still ached from the experience, she felt a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt in a long time. "What made you do it?" she asked Marcus as they stepped into the parking lot. He smiled faintly. "Because someone had to, and because it's the right thing to do." Lisa nodded, her faith in humanity partially restored. As for Officer Stone, the story didn't end there. The footage of the incident went viral, sparking a public outcry that led to an investigation into his conduct. The community rallied around Lisa, demanding accountability and justice. Little did anyone know, this incident would ignite a larger movement for change, redemption, accountability, and the ripple effect. As Lisa and Marcus walked away from the grocery store, the sense of relief was palpable. Marcus had stepped in at her darkest moment, and now the world knew what had transpired. The video recorded by bystanders spread like wildfire on social media, gaining traction within hours. The footage captured not only Officer Stone's aggression, but also Marcus's unwavering courage in standing up to the injustice. The online community erupted. The hashtags Justice for Lisa and Accountability Now trended across platforms, with millions demanding action against Officer Stone. The video became a rallying cry for those who had faced similar encounters with authority figures abusing their power. Among the countless shares and comments was a post from a prominent civil rights activist. "This is not an isolated incident," they wrote. "It's a symptom of a larger problem. We stand with Lisa and demand justice." Celebrities, influencers, and public figures joined in, amplifying the message and ensuring the story reached every corner of the country. Lisa, however, was initially reluctant to step into the spotlight. She had always been a private person, focused on her work and her son, Aaron. But Marcus gently persuaded her to use this opportunity to bring attention to a cause larger than herself. "This isn't just about you," Marcus said one evening as they sat on her porch. "It's about everyone who's ever been treated this way. You have the chance to make a difference." Lisa nodded, though the weight of responsibility felt immense. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she admitted. "You don't have to be ready," Marcus replied. "You just have to be willing." With Marcus's support, Lisa decided to speak out. She agreed to an interview with a local news station, where she recounted her experience with quiet dignity. Her words were measured but powerful. "This isn't just about one bad officer," she said. "It's about a system that allows people like him to act with impunity. That needs to change." The public outcry forced the police department to act. Officer Stone was placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. For many in the community, this was a small but significant victory. However, Marcus knew it was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, he began gathering more information about Officer Stone's past. With the help of a friend who worked in local journalism, Marcus uncovered a pattern of complaints against Stone, allegations of racial profiling, excessive force, and verbal abuse. Yet, none of these complaints had resulted in any meaningful consequences. Armed with this information, Marcus reached out to a legal advocacy group specializing in cases of police misconduct. The group agreed to represent Lisa pro bono, filing a formal complaint against Officer Stone and demanding a thorough review of his record. While the public rallied around her, Lisa faced her own private battles. The incident had left her shaken, and she struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy for her son. Aaron, who was only 8 years old, had witnessed the video and was deeply affected. "Mom, why was that man so mean to you?" he asked one evening as Lisa tucked him into bed. Lisa hesitated, searching for the right words. "Sometimes people judge others because of the color of their skin," she said gently. "But we can't let their hate make us feel small. We have to stand up for what's right." Aaron nodded solemnly. "You're brave, Mom." Lisa kissed his forehead, silently vowing to be the role model her son believed her to be. As the story gained momentum, Marcus's own past came under scrutiny. The media discovered that he was a former Marine and a longtime advocate for social justice. He had served in multiple overseas deployments before returning to civilian life, where he dedicated himself to mentoring at-risk youth in his community. When asked about his actions at the grocery store, Marcus was humble. "I just did what anyone should do," he said in an interview. "Injustice thrives when good people stay silent. I couldn't stand by and watch that happen." His words resonated deeply, solidifying his status as a local hero. Meanwhile, Officer Stone faced mounting pressure. Public protests erupted outside the police station, with demonstrators demanding his termination. Stone, once a figure of authority and control, found himself increasingly isolated. His colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the controversy. Privately, Stone was seething. He believed he was being unfairly targeted and resented the community for turning against him. "I was just doing my job," he insisted to anyone who would listen. But as the evidence against him continued to pile up, even his staunchest supporters began to waver. The investigation into Stone's conduct revealed damning details. A review of body camera footage from previous incidents showed a consistent pattern of hostility toward black individuals. In one case, Stone had detained a teenager without cause, later falsifying his report to justify the arrest. When confronted with this evidence, Stone's superiors had no choice but to act. He was formally charged with misconduct and suspended without pay. For the community, this was a moment of vindication, a sign that accountability was possible. Throughout the ordeal, Lisa found solace in the support of her community. Neighbors organized fundraisers to help with her legal fees and emotional well-being. Local businesses offered free services, and a nearby church held a prayer vigil in her honor. At one such event, Marcus took the stage to address the crowd. "Lisa's strength inspires us all," he said. "But this fight isn't just hers, it's ours. Together, we can build a community where no one has to face this kind of injustice again." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices united in hope and determination. As the public scrutiny intensified, Stone's arrogance began to crumble. He was ordered to attend a disciplinary hearing where he was confronted by his own peers. For the first time, Stone was forced to reckon with the consequences of his actions. The hearing was a tense affair, with Lisa present to deliver a powerful victim impact statement. "You didn't just humiliate me," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "You made me feel like I didn't belong, but I do belong, and I won't let your hate define me." Stone's response was uncharacteristically subdued. He apologized, though his words felt hollow. "I made a mistake," he said, avoiding Lisa's gaze. "I let my emotions get the better of me." While some saw this as a step toward accountability, others viewed it as a calculated move to save face. Regardless, the outcome was clear. Stone was stripped of his badge and barred from serving in law enforcement. The impact of Lisa's story extended far beyond her personal experience. Inspired by her courage, others came forward with their own accounts of police misconduct. These stories fueled a broader movement for reform, leading to the establishment of an independent oversight committee to investigate complaints against officers. Lisa, once reluctant to speak out, became an outspoken advocate for justice. She partnered with Marcus to launch a nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing systemic racism and supporting victims of discrimination. At the organization's inaugural event, Lisa addressed the crowd with newfound confidence. "What happened to me could have happened to anyone," she said, "but together we can make sure it doesn't happen again." Months later, Lisa stood on the steps of the courthouse, surrounded by her supporters. The lawsuit against the police department had been settled in her favor, with a commitment to implement new policies aimed at preventing future abuses. As she looked out at the crowd, Lisa felt a sense of pride and purpose she hadn't known before. She had turned her pain into progress, her humiliation into hope. Beside her, Marcus smiled. "Told you we'd get through this," he said. Lisa nodded. "And we're just getting started." Their journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. Together they had proven that even in the face of injustice, change was possible, and that the power of a united community could overcome even the deepest divisions. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with the conclusion or need adjustments. After the disciplinary hearing, Lisa Carter found herself at a crossroads. The removal of Officer Stone from the police force was a monumental victory, but it was also just the beginning of something much bigger. The experience had changed Lisa in ways she hadn't anticipated. She was no longer the woman who simply wanted to move past the incident. Now, she was someone determined to ensure no one else had to endure what she had gone through. Lisa began speaking at local community events, sharing her story and emphasizing the importance of holding those in power accountable. Her words resonated deeply with people, especially those who had faced similar injustices but had never had the chance to speak out. With each speech, Lisa felt her confidence grow, and her voice became a beacon of hope for many. Encouraged by Marcus, she decided to take her fight a step further. Together, they launched a nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing police misconduct and supporting victims of systemic injustice. Voices for Justice and Equality quickly became a force in the community, offering workshops to educate people about their rights, legal aid for those who couldn't afford it, and advocacy for meaningful reforms. The nonprofit's work quickly gained momentum. Volunteers from all walks of life joined their cause, eager to contribute. Donations began pouring in from local businesses and individuals who believed in their mission. Lisa's transformation into a community leader was undeniable, and her efforts inspired others to step forward with their own stories. Marcus, too, found his calling within the organization. Drawing on his military background, he started a mentorship program for at-risk youth, teaching them discipline, confidence, and the value of perseverance. The program became one of the nonprofit's cornerstones, helping countless young people find purpose and direction. The community began to rally around Lisa and Marcus, and their impact was undeniable. Public forums became places where residents could openly discuss their concerns, and Lisa's unwavering determination gave others the courage to speak out. At one such forum, a young woman hesitated before standing up to share her experience of being wrongfully detained by another officer. Her voice trembled, but Lisa was there to support her, offering words of comfort and strength. The moment was a powerful reminder of the change they were creating. As their efforts gained traction, local officials took notice. Under pressure from the community, the City Council implemented new measures aimed at increasing accountability and transparency in law enforcement. Body cameras became mandatory for all officers. A civilian oversight board was established to handle complaints, and implicit bias training was rolled out across the department. These changes, while just the beginning, marked a significant step toward a more equitable system. Meanwhile, the consequences of his actions caught up with Officer Stone. Stripped of his badge and reputation, he found himself facing multiple civil lawsuits from other victims. Each case revealed more evidence of his history of misconduct, and the community's overwhelming condemnation left him isolated. Lisa took no joy in Stone's downfall, but knowing he was being held accountable brought her a sense of closure. Despite the progress, Lisa's journey wasn't without its challenges. Balancing her work with her responsibilities as a mother was no easy task. Yet, through it all, she found strength in Aaron, her young son. One evening, as they sat together working on his homework, Aaron looked at her with admiration and said, "Mom, you're my hero." Those words reaffirmed her purpose and reminded her why she had chosen to fight. Months after the incident, Lisa and Marcus organized a community event to celebrate the strides they had made. Held in a local park, the gathering brought together people from all over the city. There were speeches, music, and activities for families, creating an atmosphere of unity and hope. Standing on the stage, Lisa addressed the crowd, her voice filled with conviction. "This journey hasn't been easy," she said, "but together we've shown that change is possible. We still have a long way to go, but I know we'll get there because we're stronger when we stand together." The cheers from the crowd were deafening, a testament to the movement that had grown from Lisa's courage. As she looked out at the sea of faces, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride and determination. Her story had become more than just a fight for personal justice. It was a catalyst for change. Lisa's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. From a woman who had once been humiliated in a grocery store parking lot, she had become a leader and a symbol of resilience. With Marcus by her side and the unwavering support of her community, Lisa was ready to continue her fight. The journey ahead would be long, but she knew that, together, they could create a future where dignity, justice, and equality were not just ideals, but realities. The community's progress was undeniable, yet Lisa understood that systemic change required persistence. The changes implemented by the city council were promising, but she knew there was still much to be done. Conversations at Voices for Justice and Equality increasingly revolved around addressing deeper systemic issues, things like recruitment practices, community policing initiatives, and ensuring law enforcement was held accountable across the board. One morning, as Lisa prepared for a meeting with local lawmakers, Marcus entered the room holding an article. "Look at this," he said, handing it to her. The headline read, "Victim of Police Misconduct Inspires a Movement." Lisa skimmed the article, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and disbelief. It detailed her journey, highlighting how her courage had sparked tangible change. Though grateful for the recognition, Lisa also felt the weight of expectations grow heavier. At the meeting later that day, Lisa sat across from city officials, activists, and police department representatives. Tension filled the room as discussions began. The police chief, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, was initially resistant to some of the nonprofit's proposals. "You have to understand," she argued, "our officers face immense challenges on the job. These changes can't happen overnight." Lisa leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. "We're not asking for overnight change," she said. "We're asking for a commitment to transparency, fairness, and rebuilding trust with the community. This isn't about punishing officers. It's about ensuring everyone is treated with dignity." The chief studied Lisa for a moment before nodding. "I can't promise perfection," she admitted, "but I can promise we'll work with you." The meeting ended on a hopeful note, with both sides agreeing to collaborate on pilot programs aimed at bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community. One initiative involved officers participating in community events, engaging with residents outside of enforcement roles. Another focused on improving mental health resources for officers, acknowledging that healthier officers made better decisions in the field. As these programs rolled out, Lisa and Marcus made it a point to attend as many events as possible. At one gathering, a group of officers and community members came together to paint a mural on the side of a community center. The mural depicted unity and hope, with a powerful image of a hand extending upward toward the sky. Lisa watched as children, residents, and officers worked side by side, their laughter and camaraderie filling the air. It wasn't always easy. Some officers remained resistant, and some community members doubted the sincerity of these efforts. But Lisa believed that small steps could lead to lasting change, and she refused to give up. Marcus often reminded her, "Even the biggest mountains are climbed one step at a time." The nonprofit continued to grow, attracting national attention. A documentary filmmaker approached Lisa, proposing to chronicle her journey and the impact of voices for justice and equality. Though hesitant at first, Lisa ultimately agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to amplify their message. Over the course of several months, the filmmaker captured everything: Lisa's speeches, the nonprofit's work, and the day-to-day realities of advocating for change. When the documentary premiered, it was met with widespread acclaim. It humanized the struggles of those affected by systemic injustice and highlighted the power of resilience and community. Lisa's story became a symbol of hope for many, sparking similar movements in cities across the country. Amid the nonprofit's successes, Lisa faced challenges balancing her advocacy work with her responsibilities as a mother. Aaron often accompanied her to events, his presence a reminder of why she fought so hard. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Aaron looked up at her and said, "Mom, you're helping people. That's so cool." Lisa smiled, her heart full. "I hope you always remember that it's important to stand up for what's right," she said, "no matter how hard it gets." Their bond only deepened as they navigated this new chapter together. Aaron even became involved in some of the nonprofit's youth programs, learning the values of leadership and empathy firsthand. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to expand the mentorship program, which had become one of the nonprofit's most successful initiatives. Many of the young people he worked with had faced adversity but found new purpose through his guidance. One of them, a teenager named Malik, had been on the verge of dropping out of school before joining the program. Under Marcus's mentorship, Malik not only graduated but also went on to college, becoming the first in his family to do so. Lisa often reflected on stories like Malik's, drawing inspiration from them. "This is why we do what we do," she would tell Marcus during late-night strategy sessions. "Because every life we touch creates a ripple." The ripple effect of their work was evident in the community. Residents began taking more pride in their neighborhoods, organizing cleanups and beautification projects. Crime rates decreased, and relationships between law enforcement and residents slowly improved. The progress wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As the months turned into years, Lisa and Marcus found themselves at a new crossroads. Voices for justice and equality had achieved incredible milestones, but they wanted to ensure its longevity. They began training the next generation of leaders, empowering others to take the reins and continue the work they had started. One day, Lisa received an unexpected invitation to speak at a national conference on justice reform. Standing on the stage before an audience of policymakers, activists, and leaders, she shared her journey with heartfelt honesty. "I didn't set out to become an activist," she said. "I just wanted to protect my son and make sure no one else had to experience what we did. But I've learned that change starts with ordinary people refusing to stay silent." Her words resonated deeply, earning a standing ovation. Afterward, several attendees approached her, expressing their admiration and offering their support for her cause. Lisa left the conference feeling reinvigorated, knowing that the fight for justice extended far beyond her own community. Back home, Lisa and Marcus celebrated the nonprofit's 5-year anniversary with a large community event. Held in the same park where one of their earliest rallies took place, the event was a testament to how far they had come. Families picnicked on the grass, children played games, and volunteers shared stories of triumph and resilience. As the sun began to set, Lisa stood on a makeshift stage, addressing the crowd. "This journey has been about more than just me or my family," she said. "It's been about all of us. Together, we've shown that change is possible, and as long as we stand together, nothing can stop us." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the park. Lisa looked out at the sea of faces, her heart swelling with pride. She saw Aaron, now a young teenager, smiling up at her with unwavering support. She saw Marcus, her steadfast partner in this journey, giving her a thumbs up. And she saw countless others whose lives had been touched by their work. As the evening turned to night, Lisa felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path had been far from easy, but it had been worth every challenge. She knew the fight for justice was far from over, but she also knew they were on the right side of history. In the quiet moments after the event, Lisa sat with Marcus under the stars. "Do you think we've done enough?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and uncertainty. Marcus smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "We've done a lot," he said. "But the best part is, this is just the beginning." Lisa nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Their journey was far from over, but with their community by their side, they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would continue to fight for a future where justice and equality weren't just ideals, but realities. Here's the continuation with approximately 1,500 words. The celebration of the nonprofit's anniversary had been a success, but Lisa knew the work couldn't stop there. The momentum they had built needed to be sustained. The next phase of Voices for Justice and Equality's mission focused on expanding their reach to neighboring cities, many of which were grappling with similar systemic issues. Lisa and Marcus spent countless hours traveling to community meetings, speaking with leaders, and sharing the blueprint for the programs they had successfully implemented. They emphasized the importance of collaboration and building trust between residents and law enforcement. "The key isn't just to point out what's wrong," Marcus often said in their presentations. "It's about working together to find solutions." Their efforts began to pay off. Several communities expressed interest in replicating the mentorship program and police reform initiatives. Lisa and Marcus worked tirelessly to provide guidance, often conducting workshops and training sessions to ensure the programs were tailored to the unique needs of each city. It wasn't easy, but seeing the hope in people's eyes made every long day worthwhile. One particularly impactful moment came during a town hall meeting in a small city outside their own. A young mother stood up, holding her toddler in her arms. With tears streaming down her face, she said, "I've always felt powerless to protect my child in a system that seems stacked against us. Hearing your story gives me hope. Thank you for showing us that change is possible." Lisa's heart swelled with emotion as she responded, "You're not powerless. You have a voice, and your love for your child is one of the strongest forces in the world. Together, we can create a better future for all our children." The mother's words stayed with Lisa long after the meeting ended. She knew the work they were doing wasn't just about policies and programs. It was about giving people hope and empowering them to take action. Back in their own community, Lisa and Marcus continued to focus on strengthening relationships between residents and law enforcement. One of the most successful initiatives was a series of Community Unity Days, where officers and residents came together to participate in activities like sports tournaments, cookouts, and neighborhood cleanup. These events provided a platform for open dialogue and helped break down stereotypes on both sides. At one such event, Lisa watched as a group of teenagers played basketball with a few off-duty officers. The game was competitive but friendly, and laughter filled the air. As the game ended, one of the teenagers approached Officer Daniels, a tall, kind-hearted man who had become a regular at the events. "Hey, Officer D," the teenager said, extending a hand. "Thanks for coming out. It means a lot to us." Officer Daniels smiled and shook the teenager's hand. "Thanks for letting me play. You guys are tough competition." Moments like these reminded Lisa of why they had started this journey. The barriers of mistrust and fear were slowly being replaced by understanding and mutual respect. There was still a long way to go, but these small victories were proof that progress was possible. As the nonprofit continued to grow, Lisa found herself reflecting more often on her own experiences and how far they had come. She thought back to that fateful day in the park when her world had been turned upside down. At the time, she couldn't have imagined the ripple effect it would create. What had started as a personal fight for justice had blossomed into a movement that was transforming lives and communities. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. As voices for justice and equality gained more visibility, they also faced increased scrutiny and pushback. Some critics accused them of being too idealistic, while others claimed their efforts to reform policing were anti-law enforcement. Lisa took these criticisms in stride, always responding with grace and a focus on the bigger picture. During a televised interview, a host asked her, "How do you respond to those who say your movement is too radical?" Lisa smiled, her voice calm but firm. "I don't see our work as radical. I see it as necessary. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, and that includes both residents and law enforcement. Our goal isn't to divide. It's to bring people together to create a system that works for everyone." Her response resonated with viewers, further solidifying her reputation as a thoughtful and compassionate leader. Despite the external challenges, Lisa faced personal struggles as well. Balancing her responsibilities as a mother, an advocate, and a leader often felt overwhelming. There were nights when she lay awake, questioning whether she was doing enough or whether she was neglecting her son, Aaron, in her pursuit of justice. One evening, as she worked late into the night, Aaron walked into her office. "Mom," he said, his voice quiet, "can we talk?" Lisa looked up, her heart sinking. She put her work aside and motioned for him to sit next to her. "Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind?" Aaron hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I know you're doing something really important, but sometimes I feel like I don't see you as much anymore." Lisa felt a pang of guilt. She reached out and took his hand. "I'm so sorry, Aaron. I never want you to feel like you're not my priority. Everything I'm doing for you and kids like you. But I promise I'll make more time for us." Aaron nodded, his expression softening. "Okay. I just miss you sometimes." Lisa hugged him tightly, tears welling in her eyes. "I miss you too, and I'll do better. I promise." That conversation was a turning point for Lisa. She realized the importance of finding balance and made a conscious effort to carve out more time for Aaron. They started having weekly movie nights and going on weekend outings together, strengthening their bond and reminding Lisa of why she fought so hard for justice. As the years went on, voices for justice and equality became a beacon of hope, not just in their city, but across the country. Lisa and Marcus were invited to speak at conferences, collaborate with national organizations, and even consult on legislation aimed at police reform. Their work inspired a new generation of activists who carried their mission forward with passion and determination. One day, Lisa stood in front of a crowd at the opening of a new community center inspired by their model. The center was named the Lisa Daniels Center for Justice and Unity, a tribute to her unwavering commitment to creating a better world. As she looked out at the faces of children, parents, and community leaders, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. "This center is proof of what we can achieve when we come together," she said, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "It's a reminder that no matter how difficult the journey may seem, we have the power to create change. Thank you for believing in this vision and for making it a reality." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the air. Lisa smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment she hadn't thought possible all those years ago when her fight for justice began. In the quiet moments that followed the event, Lisa sat on a bench outside the center, watching as children played and families laughed together. Marcus joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You did good, Lisa," he said, his voice warm and full of pride. Lisa took a sip of the coffee, her heart full. "We did good," she replied, "and there's still so much more to do." Marcus nodded, his gaze fixed on the bustling center. "One step at a time." Lisa smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but she knew they had the strength, resilience, and support to keep moving forward. Together, they would continue to fight for justice, unity, and a brighter future for generations to come. As the years passed, voices for justice and equality evolved into a national movement. The network of community centers inspired by Lisa and Marcus's work had grown to over 100 locations across the country, each serving as a safe space for empowerment, education, and advocacy. Their message of unity and reform had touched countless lives, creating ripples of change that extended far beyond what Lisa had ever envisioned. Lisa often found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She thought back to the moments of despair when she had been humiliated and dehumanized, the nights of doubt when she wondered if the fight was worth it. But now, as she stood on the stage at a national summit on justice reform, looking out at a crowd of activists, leaders, and supporters, she knew the answer. It had all been worth it. The summit was a momentous occasion, attended by influential figures from various sectors, including government officials, nonprofit leaders, and community advocates. Lisa was the keynote speaker, a role she had prepared for meticulously. As she stepped up to the podium, the room fell silent, and all eyes turned to her. Taking a deep breath, Lisa began her speech. "When I started this journey, I never imagined I'd be standing here today," she said, her voice steady and resonant. "What began as a deeply personal fight for justice has grown into something much larger, a movement built on the foundation of hope, resilience, and the unwavering belief that we can create a better future." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "But let's be clear, our work is far from over. The systems that have perpetuated injustice for so long are deeply entrenched, and dismantling them will require relentless effort and collaboration. It's not enough to address the symptoms. We must tackle the root cause. Lisa's speech was met with a standing ovation, her words sparking renewed energy and determination among the attendees. After the event, she was approached by a young woman who introduced herself as a lawyer working on police accountability cases. "Your story inspires me every day," the woman said, her voice filled with emotion. "I want to be part of this movement and help make a difference." Lisa smiled warmly. "There's room for everyone in this fight. Together, we're stronger." Back home, Lisa and Marcus continued their grassroots efforts, ensuring that their local community remained a model for the broader movement. They frequently hosted workshops and town hall meetings, fostering dialogue between residents and law enforcement. These gatherings often began with storytelling, as Lisa and Marcus believed in the power of personal experiences to bridge divides and build empathy. One evening, during a particularly emotional town hall, a young police officer stood up to share his perspective. "I joined the force because I wanted to protect and serve," he said, his voice trembling. "But I've seen things that make me question whether I'm part of the problem. I want to do better, but I don't know where to start." Lisa approached him after the meeting, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Acknowledging the problem is the first step," she said. "The fact that you want to change means you're already part of the solution. Let's work together to make it happen." Their collaboration led to the development of a mentorship program for new police recruits, pairing them with community leaders who could provide guidance on cultural competence, de-escalation techniques, and building trust with residents. The program quickly gained traction and was adopted by several police departments across the state. As the movement grew, Lisa and Marcus faced increasing pressure to take on leadership roles at the national level. Advocacy groups and political leaders urged them to run for office or spearhead larger coalitions, recognizing their ability to inspire and unite diverse communities. While flattered, Lisa remained cautious. "My heart is in the community," she explained to Marcus during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "I don't want to lose sight of the people we're fighting for by getting caught up in politics." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "I get it, Lisa, but imagine the impact you could have if you brought our vision to a national platform." Their conversation lingered in Lisa's mind as she weighed the possibilities. She sought advice from trusted mentors, including former civil rights leaders and nonprofit executives, who encouraged her to consider the broader implications of her work. Ultimately, Lisa decided to take a step forward, not by running for office, but by joining a national task force on systemic reform. The task force brought together leaders from various fields, including law, education, social work, and criminal justice. Lisa's role was to ensure that the voices of marginalized communities remained at the forefront of their effort. She traveled extensively, meeting with grassroots organizations, attending hearings, and advocating for policies that addressed the systemic inequities she had witnessed firsthand. One of the most impactful moments of her tenure on the task force came during a hearing on qualified immunity, a legal doctrine that often shielded police officers from accountability. Lisa shared her story with lawmakers, recounting the day she had been humiliated by Officer Grant and the long battle for justice that followed. "This isn't just about one bad officer or one isolated incident," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "It's about a system that has allowed these injustices to persist unchecked. If we want real change, we have to hold people accountable and ensure that the law protects everyone equally." Her testimony was widely covered in the media, sparking a national conversation about accountability and reform. It also led to the introduction of new legislation aimed at increasing transparency and reducing abuses of power within law enforcement. As Lisa continued her work on the national stage, Marcus took on a more prominent role within their nonprofit, ensuring that their local initiatives remained strong. He became a mentor to young activists, sharing his experiences and encouraging them to pursue their own paths to change. Together, Lisa and Marcus exemplified the power of partnership and shared vision. Their work inspired countless others to join the fight for justice, creating a ripple effect that touched lives across the country. Years later, as Lisa prepared to step down from her leadership role at Voices for Justice and Equality, she reflected on the incredible journey she had undertaken. What had started as a single moment of humiliation and defiance had grown into a legacy of hope and empowerment. At her retirement ceremony, held at the very community center where it all began, Lisa addressed the crowd one final time. "This isn't the end," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's a new chapter. The fight for justice is ongoing, and it's up to all of us to keep pushing forward. Thank you for believing in this vision and for carrying it forward." As the audience erupted into applause, Lisa felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had dedicated her life to creating a better world. And while there was still much work to be done, she knew that the seeds she had planted would continue to grow. Walking out into the warm evening air, Lisa looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had also been filled with purpose and love. And as she gazed at the night sky, she knew that her fight for justice had only just begun in the hearts and minds of those she had inspired. As Lisa stepped off the stage and into the crowd of supporters, she was surrounded by a sea of gratitude and hope. People of all ages came up to her, sharing how her story had impacted their lives, how it had inspired them to stand up for themselves and others. Each word reaffirmed the power of unity and the resilience of those who believe in justice. Before the night ended, Lisa paused in front of a camera set up for the organization's video updates. She smiled warmly, addressing not just those present, but the thousands who would watch online. "We've come a long way together, but the fight for justice is far from over. I want to hear from all of you, your thoughts, your experiences, and your hopes for the future. What does justice mean to you? What inspires you to keep going? Let's keep this conversation alive. Share your stories in the comments below, and let's learn from each other. Together, we can build a world where fairness and equality are not just ideals, but a reality." As the camera light blinked off, Lisa looked out at the community she had helped unite. She knew the path forward wouldn't always be easy, but with so many voices rising together, the future felt brighter than ever. Now it's your turn. What do you think justice looks like? Have you ever had a moment where you stood up for what was right, even when it was hard? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together we can make a difference.